On the vast wilderness, ancient relics, foreign races, fierce beasts, humans, and thousands of races compete on this land. Above the 9 heavens, darkness surges into the sea, surging towards the heavens and all realms. A soul reincarnated and traveled to the perfect world, becoming a villager of an ordinary village in this terrifying wilderness. With a primordial aura carried within his soul, can he find his way through this era of time and space? Try asking. This vast land, who rules the ups and downs? Keywords of the novel. Perfect world. Lord of the Halo no pop-ups, perfect world. Lord of the Halo complete collection download, perfect world. Lord of the Halo latest chapter reading. Chapter 1, Xiaoxi Village. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1, Xiaoxi Village. The mountains are stacked with thick mist, and the lush ancient trees cover the scenery within the mountains. The low roar of beasts echoed in the mountains and forests, macaques howled in the forest, and white wolf cliffs worshipped the moon. The rustling wind stirred the forest and it kept shaking, making it rare to find some stability in this terrifying wilderness today. There are no remnants of the deep mountains emerging, nor are there terrifying beasts causing chaos. In this vast wilderness, at the edge of 100,000 mountains, there is a village called One Beast Mountain. This village is located at the foot of the mountain, with a spiritual stream as a sacrificial offering and a mining creature also receiving support from the small stream village. In terms of villages alone, this small creek village can be said to have a great source of blessings in the vast wilderness. After all, in addition to the spiritual creek where one worships their own spirits, there is also a spiritual mountain that contains precious gold and has spirituality. Even compared to some small towns, this is slightly inferior. It is precisely because of this that, with the protection of Lingxi and Lingshan, this small creek village has survived on the outskirts of this beast mountain range. This beast mountain is constantly roaring with beasts all year round, and there have been many ferocious creatures wandering inside. Some of these ferocious creatures here have a great reputation even in the wilderness. Wow! A small stream, like a clear spring, surrounds the entire village and connects with the Ling Mountain. The Ling Mountain and the stream are intertwined, forming a symbiotic relationship. The clear stream surrounds stone houses and large mountains, making the area quite impressive. In the distance, apart from the mountains and ancient trees, there is also a spirit lake hidden in a deep valley, nurturing the surrounding creatures. A few skylarks, waving their white cloud-like wings, flew between the reeds, startling the water snakes hidden within the reeds, or even causing several 5-colored phoenix birds to fly. In the lake, golden and silver arowanas roam, and several mussels open and close on the mudflat on both sides, revealing the tender white mussel meat and round mussel beads. In this treacherous beast mountain range, this small creek village can also be considered a rare blessing, appearing quite peaceful. In addition, with the inscription realm of Lingshan and Lingxi, as well as the sacrificial and clan-protecting Lingshan that transforms the spiritual realm, Xiaoxi village is able to stand steadily here. The sky breaks through the mountain mist, bringing a ray of golden light that falls on this land like a fairyland. In Xiaoxi village, the young men of the hunting team once again left the village and entered the beast mountain range with the blessings of their families. In the wilderness, the human race without cultivation wants to survive and basically struggles with death every day, especially these hunting teams that hunt for the village every day. They are basically the backbone of a village. If they suffer heavy casualties, then the survival of a village will face major problems. Breathe. The elder, who is old but still strong, serves as the head coach for the children in the village. He is using his rich experience to teach children the knowledge of the wilderness, as well as the importance of cultivation and learning. A day's plan lies in the morning, and a year's plan lies in spring. To survive in this cruel wilderness, one must learn to learn and practice. The elder waved the crutch polished by the roots of the old pine tree in his hand. After years of nourishing his chi and blood, this crutch became even harder and heavier than ordinary metal. That is to say, hitting someone is extremely painful. This old teaching staff has been beating people for generations, and it can also be considered the ancestral tool in Xiaoxi village. At this moment, in front of him, a group of children of all sizes were waving their fists and feet, male and female. Hey! Ha! The crisp childlike voice carries the morning sunshine, and a vibrant vitality blooms here. The smallest figure among the children, with a chubby body and seemingly well-fed children, also danced with his fists and feet. This child is chubby and has a small body, looking like a lucky chubby doll. It seems that as soon as I see him, I feel that this child is full of blessings. To be honest, in this cruel wilderness, there is such a chubby grandson whose thoughts are of countless human races. The elder, shuttling between children, saw the movements of the chubby little guy and smiled on his face. It wasn't that the chubby little guy's movements were non-standard, nor was he careless. But when he saw such a wealthy little chubby guy, he was overjoyed and even more hopeful for the next generation. Practice and cultivation. The first priority is the physical body. Only when your physical body has laid a solid foundation can you go far enough on the path of cultivation. The elder saw the children's movements, so he continued to talk with a smile. From time to time, he extended his dark pine cane to guide the children's practice. He has once ventured into the wilderness and seen many places, which can be considered his good luck. In addition, the inheritance of Xiaoxi village has not been interrupted, so he has also ventured into the wilderness for some years. The final dilemma lies in the realm of spiritual transformation, and I finally returned to Xiaoxi village, which is now the strongest and most knowledgeable one in Xiaoxi village. This path of cultivation requires perseverance. Others may be too advanced for you, but you must remember that only by persisting can you have the opportunity to take it to the next level. So, you need to polish your body and learn all the bone inscriptions I taught you, so that you can enter the first realm of cultivation. The elder smiled and pointed to one side, saying that in the distance, on a flat ground paved with many stone slabs, many elderly people in the village were breathing and breathing. At this moment, as the morning sun rose, those elderly people also stopped their daily work and looked towards the children. They saw the children's lively eyes and laughed heartily. Alright, that's all for today. Jiang Yingming leaned on a pine stick and said with a smile. Suddenly, all the children were overjoyed upon hearing the words, and then dispersed in unison. The chubby little guy standing behind the children also breathed a sigh of relief, soothing his hands and feet. I'm so tired. Xiao Pangdun let out a slight breath and spoke out, feeling a bit milky. Ha ha ha. Jiang Yingming, leaning on his crutch, laughed heartily at the words and couldn't help but tease, our little martial arts enthusiast, you must be exhausted today. Xia Pangdun's cute and lucky face grinned as he heard the words, and then he took steps to chase dogs and chickens in the village. Approaching noon, Xia Pangdun returned home, and his mother had already prepared the food waiting for him. The food in the village was not bad, and Xia Pangdun suddenly opened his mouth as he looked at the delicious grilled meat. Xiao Yun, you're all covered in dirt. Come and eat more. Shi Yunying nodded slightly at Xiao Pengduan's head and said angrily with a smile. Xia Pangdun smiled pleasantly and then began to eat in large gulps. After lunch, taking a nap was very important. However, today during the nap, as usual, Xia Pangdun remembered his bone script and polished it with his own energy and blood. Suddenly, he felt a slight summoning in his heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 2, Strange Things in the Heart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2, Strange Things in the Heart. At the call of his heart, little Pangdun seemed to be lost in a trance, and then fell asleep lightly. Shi Yunying walked into the small room and looked at the little chubby guy sleeping on the con. She suddenly said gently, this child doesn't even know how to cover something while sleeping. Then he pulled a piece of animal skin and gently covered little Pengduan's body. Looking at the sleeping little chubby guy, Shi Yunying also smiled slightly. She is truly the child I gave birth to. Judging from her appearance, she is bound to be a lucky person in the future. Shi Yunying said with a slight sense of satisfaction, and then gently walked out of the room to continue with today's matter. In the room, the stone house is covered by animal skins, and the whole room is somewhat dim. At this moment, the sleeping little chubby guy's heart was clear, and in his senses, he seemed to have entered a dimly lit space. In his heart, a brilliant halo converged here, giving little Pangdun a very intimate feeling, and he could feel that this halo was summoning him. He wants to step forward. As his mind moved, his body naturally moved forward and came into contact with this halo. Immediately, the colorful mist began to shrink, and a milky white halo condensed here. At the same time, memories surged towards little Pangdun. Originally, I have already traveled. Little Fatty Dun's mind was quite restless here, but the halo was slightly glowing, making him quickly settle down. His name is Jiang Yun. In his past life, he was an ordinary person on earth. He has also seen perfect, covering the sky, holy ruins, and the latest deep sky beyond. So he naturally knows where he has come from. I didn't expect to come to a perfect world. In this cruel era, even though the Heavenly Emperor's talent has been overwhelming for a lifetime, he has also suffered many hardships, and in the end, he alone bears the eternal suffering. Jiang Yun thought with a dark face, that the Copper Coffin trilogy is basically a world of cannibalism, and it would be better to talk about the other side of the deep sky. Even though there are many monsters and disasters, at least being an ordinary person is not a bit dangerous. Because when danger approached, it was unknown how long they had been dead. However, I never expected that when I traveled to the perfect world, I would also become a natural supreme like the first generation. In the blink of an eye, my mind once again focused on the milky white halo in front of me. The original halo, influenced by the magical path of the earth and the time and space of the heavens, ultimately evolved into my supreme talent through the grand laws of the world and the blood of the Stone Clan within me. Jiang Yun looked at the halo in front of him with a slight excitement. He was born supreme. Every born supreme one is not one who breaks through the extreme realm with blood and has 10 holes in the sky. Combined with his supreme treasure technique, he can be considered the pride of an ancient sect in the upper realm. What excites Jiang Yun even more about this primordial halo is that it is naturally equipped with a hidden mechanism, and can be both large and small, both virtual and real, and can generate various mysterious powers. However, based on the information transmitted by this primordial halo, these various mysterious powers still need to be learned and imprinted in the halo by Jiang Yun himself. Enable the original halo to acquire these powers. Just like now, this original halo at most only has the function of concealing the heavenly secrets and gathering the energy of heaven and earth. As for summoning it, the texture of this halo is comparable to ordinary purple gold iron, and it can deal with ordinary ferocious beasts and remnants. If you encounter those ancient remnants with bone inscriptions condensed in your body, it's probably hard to say. So now, not only do I need to polish my body well, making it healthy and full of chi and blood, I also need to study bone inscriptions well, engrave them in the halo of the origin, and make them change. After understanding this, Jiang Yun withdrew from his heart and opened his eyes to a dimly lit room. Just as soon as he opened his eyes, Jiang Yun realized something was wrong. Is this the essence of heaven, earth, mountains, and rivers? Jiang Yun opened his eyes and found that although the room was dim, another wave of popularity was wandering in his eyes. Outside the room, he could vaguely see a blue aura like flowing waves forming a river surging. There is another thick and golden mountain located behind the village, and the entire village is constantly nourished by the intersection of these two energies. Is this causing my eyes to become the Dharma eye or the divine eye? Jiang Yun murmured to himself, his face even more excited, but he only saw such a miracle, and his eyes did not change. As he walked out of the house, the familiar world now became even more colorful and colorful in his eyes, whether it was flowers, trees, or river creatures. Even the children and elders playing in the village have a misty aura constantly changing. Some air is like mist, Some air is like smoke, some colors turn green to show vitality, some colors turn gray, and there is a dead silence. Walking in the village, Jiang Yun constantly experimented with his magic eye, which he named Wanqi technique. Although this qi-seeking technique is not very advanced, for some arrogant individuals, they are striving forward in their martial arts and can even open their martial arts eyes. This kind of heavenly eye can accompany Tianjiao people to become stronger all the way, and eventually integrate into their bloodline, leaving blessings for future generations. But it cannot be denied that this kind of qi-gazing technique, which has no loss and can display various weather conditions, may only be achieved by the gods in the upper realm. The spirit of Sister Ling of the sacrificial spirit creek flows like a great river, which clearly reflects her strength. Jiang Yun looked out at the small stream outside the village, which was shining with spiritual light. It was the sacrificial spirit guarding the village day and night, the creek spirit. As the saying goes, if one's position is not enough, they cannot be called gods. Even the venerable cannot be addressed. Because this world also emphasizes causality, once this boundary is crossed, one will inevitably suffer more disasters along the path. Then he tried and Jiang Yun turned off the watching qi technique. Although this ability could bring him benefits, there were no treasures to find in the village now. Of course, excluding the ancestral artifacts placed in the ancestral house. In the afternoon, Jiang Yun found his instructor grandfather and carefully studied bone inscriptions in front of him. Xiao Yun, you are still too young now. You can conceive and nurture these bone inscriptions, but you must not use them without authorization. The instructor grandfather explained seriously to the little chubby guy in front of him. Jiang Yun naturally knew that it was best not to use bone script or qi and blood in the blood-moving realm. The essence of moving blood in the realm is to use one's own qi and blood to warm and nourish each bone inscription, so that the bone inscriptions continuously absorb qi and blood and transform into divine radiance. And Shinqi is the embodiment of bone inscriptions that have been fully nurtured, with its interior resembling eternal ovens, constantly providing strength for practitioners. This is also the foundation for entering the cave realm. If the bone script is not polished perfectly, even the cave realm may not be accessible. End of this chapter. Chapter 3, Learning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3, Learning. Bone inscriptions were all learned by our human race from those ancient relics bodies. Grandpa Jiang saw that Jiang Yun was sensible and clever, so he put down a dim sum and began to explain the origin of his bone culture. Grandpa Jiang, how does this bone script work when combined? Jiang Yun listened to Jiang Yingming's story and couldn't help but ask curiously. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yingming stroked his beard and said with a smile, "This requires you to study hard and jot down the meanings represented by these bone inscriptions. You should know that these bone inscriptions in the great wilderness not only represent our path of cultivation, but also represent the communication mode of the entire great wilderness. In some great religions and royal families, their disciples' children are also learning these bone inscriptions at your age." Jiang Yingming touched Jiang Yun's head and said with a smile, "So Xiao Yun, you should study hard. Only by studying hard can you avoid being foolish when you encounter opportunities in the future. Only by laying a solid foundation can you learn other things smoothly." Upon hearing Jiang Yingming's words, Jiang Yun understood in his heart that bone script is actually text, just like traditional and simplified characters in their world, it is text, and each bone script inside represents many meanings. As long as you have a thorough understanding of bone script, how to combine it is actually as simple as choosing words and sentences. This is not only the starting point for the cultivators of the great wilderness, but also the enlightenment starting point for the countless tribes of the great wilderness. Jiang Yun realized this and suddenly asked curiously, "Grandpa Jiang, how many bone inscriptions are there?" Jiang Yingming was slightly taken aback by the words and immediately laughed. "I asked this question back then. There are about 30,000 or so bone inscriptions, but only 3,000 or 4,000 of them are commonly used and written." Jiang Yingming said seriously, "So Xiao Yun, you need to remember the meaning of each bone inscription and the meaning it represents when it fits with many bone inscriptions. Only in this way can you go further and further on the path of runes. Jiang Yun immediately nodded to express his understanding, looking at the obedient little chubby guy with a lucky and adorable chubby face. Jiang Yingming also has a great fondness for the young genius in this tribe. This child has been intelligent since childhood and can remember the bone inscriptions taught by him almost twice. And they are also very hardworking, but unfortunately, although their village lives well, they still cannot compare to those big tribes. Afterwards, Jiang Yingming began to teach Jiang Yun bone script, which was not difficult to draw. In addition, his talent was indeed good, at least learning this thing would not be difficult for him. So, one old and one young, one taught and one learned, and in a day, they learned more than 10 bone inscriptions. Ahem. Jiang Yingming still underestimated Jiang Yun's talent. Although more than a dozen bone inscriptions were nothing, they didn't have any special charm, making it difficult for people to understand. But at this time, Jiang Yun was only 7 years old, and at this age, he could quickly grasp these bone inscriptions and jot down all their meanings. Even though Jiang Yingming had seen many geniuses before, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. Haha! It seems that our Xiaoyun is really a genius. Jiang Yingming said happily, then touched Jiang Yun's head and said, "All right, that's all for today. Practice. We should pay attention to relaxation and relaxation, neither practicing too much nor playing too much." Upon hearing this, Jiang Yun naturally understood and nodded, bidding farewell to Jiang Yingming before walking into the village. "Xiao Yun, why are you here?" Jiang Yu looked at Jiang Yun in confusion. "I think it's Xiao Yun who is here again to learn from Grandpa Jiang," said Jiang Li. "They are twins, Jiang Li is the older brother, and Jiang Yu is the younger brother. They have been Jiang Yun's playmates since childhood." Upon hearing his brother's words, Jiang Yu immediately widened his eyes and looked at Jiang Yun with an exaggerated expression. He was quite shocked and said, "Have you not trained enough this morning?" Jiang Yun chuckled and then his eyes purred as he said, let's go. How about we pick clams today?" "You mean the big lake where the Lord of the Sacrifice rested?" Jiang Yu heard this and his mind was instantly diverted by Jiang Yun. Seeing Jiang Yun nodding, the two brothers excitedly said, "Xiao Yun, you still have some ideas, but that's where the Lord of the Sacrifice rests. Can we go?" Seeing the two of them worried, Jiang Yun waved his hand and smiled, saying, "Why can't we go? Our village's water supply is all taken from the stream, and the Lord of Sacrifice doesn't even care about this." Later, Jiang Yun chuckled and said, "Besides, Sister Jilling is not as serious as Grandpa Shanling. She's easy to talk to." Jiang Yu and Jiang Li nodded immediately upon hearing the words. At this moment, Jiang Li seemed to have regained his senses and looked at Jiang Yun with a skeptical expression, saying, "Xiao Yun, tell me, have you already secretly been there?" Jiang Yun's eyes immediately said, "Impossible," upon hearing this. Then they urged the two people, and then the three of them slipped out of the village. Due to the wide range of spiritual protection, children in the village often leave the village. The village is very flat outside, but when you go around it, you will find that it is actually a large basin, and there is a valley next to it. At this moment, Jiang Yun and his companions were heading towards the valley. A few silver-winged sparrows flew over the big tree, curiously peeking at the three human children and watching what they were doing. The wild rabbit in the grass is also quietly peeking, afraid of being noticed by these bear kids. The valley is very close to Xiaoxi village, and it is very large. There are many green grasses and many green bamboo growing in the valley. Many foods in Xiaoxi village are harvested here, and some bamboo shoots are still the main source of food in Xiaoxi village. However, the most impressive thing in the entire valley is the lake, where a small stream flows continuously. But even if it continues to flow, the lake water still shimmers and shows no signs of diminishing. And there is also an ice blue liquid swimming in the lake water. That is exactly the sacrificial spirit of Xiaoxi village. Although the entire stream and lake are her body, the highest goodness is like water, and she manages all things without competition. It is precisely because of the nature of water that the spirit of Xiaoxi village has condensed into such a body. At this moment, the mysterious water in the lake, which seemed both fluid and humanoid, suddenly opened its eyes and saw that her appearance looked like a young girl, and her form had already come to life. However, his realm is not enough, and she has chosen to offer sacrifices to the spirits, which has resulted in her not being able to transform and emerge yet. However, it is precisely because she became a sacrificial spirit that she has already possessed such spiritual intelligence in the inscription realm. These little guys. Xiling furrowed her nose slightly, and under her perception, she naturally knew who had come. At this moment, on the ground, Jiang Yun and his 3 children finally arrived at the lake. The mudflat beside the lake is very shallow. The water of the lake is basically shallow except for a very deep part in the center. Look, what a big clam! Jiang Li excitedly pointed to the clams in the lake, each one getting bigger and bigger. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Sacrifice of the Girl's Mentality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 5, Halo Changes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5, Halo Changes. In his breathing and breathing, Jiang Yun sat behind the children, feeling the changes in the halo in his heart. This halo seems to be breathing with him, as if it is also imprinting his breathing technique. The soft light of Yin slowly appears in the original halo, and these strands of soft light converge towards the center of the halo. Jiang Yun had a feeling in his heart that once these rays of light gathered enough, he would receive a new halo. Amazing! It's really amazing. Will this halo condensed by breathing and breathing help me gather energy, or will it replace my breathing and breathing? Jiang Yun's chubby face smiled. The morning work passed quickly, and the aggregation of the halo was not so easy. The sun was steadily rising, and Jiang Yingming stood up and said, "All right, as the saying goes, when it comes to practice, one should relax one's breath and exhale one's breath. This morning is the best time for breathing and breathing, but you can't miss it. If you miss it, even if you use a day's breathing and breathing to supplement it, it's just like a morning. If that's the case, everyone's daily cultivation will also be ruined." As Jiang Yingming watched the children excitedly stand up, she smiled and said, "So, remember, this morning exercise is very important." Grandpa Jiang. A mischievous child reached out his hand as he looked at it. "Oh. What does Xiaolong want to ask?" Jiang Yingming smiled and looked at Xiaolong. "Little dragon, dragon snake." Jiang Xiaolong chuckled and said, "Didn't I hear that once we reach the cave realm, we can have a continuous stream of magic? So, can we stop breathing and breathing?" Upon hearing this, Jiang Yingming saw everyone's excited expression and angrily smiled. How could such a good thing happen? Although the cave realm can provide us with a continuous supply of essence, the growth of our cultivation still requires us to refine these essence in order to make progress. As Jiang Yingming spoke, he extended his palm and saw a divine light fly out of his palm, very beautiful, like fireflies emitting only a mysterious light. "Black, black. Look, this is the divine light transformed by runes," said Jiang Yingming, as the divine light in his hand floated out, thinking of all the children drifting away. Like flowing light and like ribbons. Xinqi is the foundation of our cultivators. Our first realm is called the blood-moving realm, which is the use of qi and blood to nourish runes. Remember, the key is to use qi and blood to nourish runes, and the heavier the qi and blood, the more brilliant the runes they nourish. Legend has it that during the ancient times, there were ancient creatures who, in order to become gods, often allowed their young children to break through the extreme realm of 100,000 blood carriers. So this is also why some spiritual mountains and pure lands outside the great wilderness are called sacred mountains. As far as Grandpa and I know, those sacred mountains are still undergoing such ancient trials and tribulations. Jiang Yingming spoke with a sigh in his tone, and it was not without reason that the ancient heritage could dominate the present-day wilderness. Just moving blood to the extreme realm alone has stumped many people, and he has even heard that these young creatures of ancient times have to travel alone for 100,000 miles in the wilderness to be considered arrogant. The children in the village listened to Jiang Yingming's words and their eyes showed longing. Jiang Yun is the same, but he believes that 100,000 extreme realms are not a problem for him. He knows that the true extreme realm is a one-arm swing of 100,000 pounds. And only the descendants of immortal blood can truly achieve this. Like the sky ant, true dragon, and sure how. In the afternoon, Jiang Yun continued to learn bone script with Jiang Yingming. He was very hard-working, and the bone script he learned was not only condensed in his flesh and blood, but also in the halo of his origin. Runes gather within the halo of origin, and bone inscriptions also appear on the body of the halo of origin. Obviously, this original halo is growing with Jiang Yun's growth. After learning bone inscriptions with Jiang Yingming, Jiang Yun came to the edge of the pool to explain the bone inscriptions to the spiritual turtle. Every explanation is still written by the pool. In his heart, he also had a hope, which was whether this turtle could cultivate Xuanwu like the Supreme Hall, even if it could not become Xuanwu. Being a camel mountain turtle is also good. Nature Jiang Yun was very attentive, telling the bone script for this spirit turtle. In the evening, a group of people pulled a huge ferocious beast towards the village. The hunting team is back. They are back. The children shouted early and excitedly in every household in the village. With their shouts, women and children from the village walked out one after another, and the hunting team was not a routine of sunrise and sunset. They often need 3 or 4 days, or even a week, to return each time they go out. Therefore, every time you go out, it is a life and death test. Jiang Li, Jiang Yu, Jiang Xiaolong, and other children all approached and surrounded their father. Jiang Yun also kept running and quickly approached a robust man. Jiang Qingkong saw his own son running towards him and burst into laughter, throwing down the vines and holding on to Jiang Yun. "Have you listened to your mother these days, you naughty bastard?" Jiang Qingkong said with a laugh. Jiang Yun felt a bit uncomfortable and struggled, falling to the ground and chuckling, "Of course I'm obedient." Then he asked with concern, "Father, how was your hunting this time? Did you get hurt?" Without waiting for Jiang Qingkong to speak, Uncle Jiang Qingyang laughed and said, "Our little Cloud will also take care of his father." Upon hearing this, Jiang Qingkong felt even more proud. Then he grabbed the vines behind him and smiled at Jiang Yun, saying, "Let's wait until your father brings these things into the village." Immediately, the huge ferocious beast was pulled into the village by everyone. At this moment, the village was scorching hot, and the Yangtze River was like water. Elder Jiang Yingming and others sharpened their swords vigorously. The purple golden axe was summoned from the ancestral house, like a gilded golden jar, ready to receive the precious blood of these ferocious beasts. Ha! The unicorn earth dragon is not bad, not bad. Jiang Yingming looked around the huge ferocious beast and touched the dark unicorn of the unicorn earth dragon, saying, "Well, this unicorn has a strong texture, and its tip can be used for medicine. It can also extract some blood marrow from inside." Jiang Yingming said to put the pine cane in his hand aside, took the purple golden axe, and then the dawn light emitted from the purple golden axe. Ding! Jiang Yingming picked up an axe and fell it, leaving a mark on the unicorn of the unicorn earth dragon in an instant. Jiang Yingming was not surprised to see this, but instead laughed and said, "Ha! It seems that this unicorn earth dragon is eating well. The better the one-horned earth dragon eats, the harder the horns on its head, which is also the strongest and sharpest part of its body." Ding! Ding! Jiang Yingming kept wielding his axe, and the purple golden short axe shone with a brilliant light, surrounded by divine light, making its blade even sharper. End of this chapter. Chapter 6, Sacrifice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6, Sacrifice. Bring the blood tank over. Jiang Yingming shouted loudly. Jiang Qingkong immediately picked up the gilded metal jar and placed it under the unicorn. In the next moment, the purple golden axe flashed and the 2-meter-long unicorn fell instantly. A few mouthfuls of precious blood emitting a brilliant glow flowed out from here, and not a few drops were taken into the blood tank. At this moment, Jiang Yingming grabbed the unicorn on the ground and used a dark iron pestle to gradually remove the blood marrow from it. Then he picked up the purple and gold sledgehammer on the side and began to knock down the first mock examination white tip on the single horn. Then he hammered it with several thumping sounds, which also turned the powder. Jiang Yingming is here to extract the blood essence of the unicorn, while the village of Yangtze River, like water, is leading several other elders to dismember the huge unicorn earth dragon with their sharp golden short swords. After a moment, the Yangtze River in the village brought the entire village to the entrance. At this moment, a little icy blue liquid flowed from the stream. Jiang Sisui and others offered 1/3 of their precious blood and held a sacrificial ceremony, offering sacrifices to the deity. And Xiling also took these sacrifices seriously. Although these things didn't have much effect on her, they were what she deserved as a sacrificial spirit. In a moment, 1/3 of them were taken by the young people in the village to offer to the mountain spirits in the rear. As the rear emitted light, everyone relaxed. The ritual has passed. Subsequently, the villagers of Xiaoxi village began to move around. Firstly, everyone took away the flesh and blood of the ferocious beast and began to marinate and dry it. Then, in the evening, everyone began a lively banquet. Jiang Yun is also one of these lively people, and such beauty makes him feel warm happiness in such a cruel era. The next day, the hunting teams took a temporary day off, and every time they returned, they would take a day off before going out. So on this morning, not only children but also adults got up early to practice, sitting next to their own children waving their fists and feet. Jiang Qingkong looked at his young son being able to keep up with the training of the big guy, and his face was immediately filled with joy and pride. After the morning exercise, Jiang Yingming called Jiang Qingkong. "Zhu Lao, what do you need me for?" Jiang Qingkong is a typical wild man who speaks frankly and never hesitates to make a U-turn. Although Jiang Yingming had traveled abroad for many years and returned safely, he still had the habit of being a wild man. Naturally, there was no dissatisfaction with Jiang Qingkong's directness, and he also said directly, "I see that Xiaoyun has reached his age and should be baptized for him." Upon hearing these words, Jiang Qingkong was taken aback and said casually, "What do I need to do?" Upon hearing this, Jiang Yingming sighed slightly in his heart. Many men in the wilderness undergo simple baptism, only those ancient tribes can undergo the baptism of their precious blood. However, he had already thought about this before, and then he took out a roll of animal skin from his arms and handed it to Jiang Qingkong, saying, "This is one of the 5 great prescriptions passed down from the Stone Clan back then. I only have the first one here, and it happens to be suitable for building foundations." As Jiang Yingming spoke, he took out another piece of animal skin and said, "Many of the ancient exotic species on this prescription are no longer easy to search for. This is the substitute I have found over the years. Although it may not be as good as the original, it is enough to baptize the children." Upon hearing this, Jiang Qingkong took the prescription and then remembered it, handing it to Jiang Yingming. Jiang Yingming took it and stored it close to his body, then said, "It doesn't matter if you go on this trip. First, gather all the medicine on top of it." Upon hearing this, Jiang Qingkong nodded and smiled as he looked towards Jiang Yun, who was teaching turtles in the distance. "I understand, clan leader," he said. Jiang Yingming nodded at this and then smiled, saying, "I think Xiaoyun has good luck and talent. When you go home, ask your mother-in-law to give you more food to strengthen your qi and blood." Jiang Qingkong laughed proudly upon hearing this, and then bid farewell to Jiang Yingming. He planned to go home and ask Shi Yunying. At Jiang Yun's home. Jiang Yun's mother, Shi Yunying, heard Jiang Qingkong's question and looked at the prescription he had silently written. She nodded slightly and said, "This ratio clan elder is still very confident. We also studied this formula back then, but many ancient exotic species on it have either disappeared or become incredibly powerful, which is beyond our reach." As he spoke, he sewed the animal skin with this bone needle. Upon hearing this, Jiang Qingkong looked at his wife and asked, "So, what else do you think Yunying need to fill in this prescription?" Shi Yunying smiled upon hearing the words and said, "This prescription has been thoroughly studied by the clan elders. However, you can tell them that medicinal herbs belong to medicinal herbs. However, if some of the 5 poisons that have become climate have entered the cauldron together while they are alive, then this prescription will definitely be good." Jiang Qingkong was taken aback by the words and hesitated, saying, "This has become the 5 poisons of the climate. Putting it alive will not harm our children, will it?" Upon hearing this, Shi Yunying immediately glanced at him and said, "When our group came out, Shi Guan not only gave us this prescription, but also told us a oral secret recipe. 5 poisons enter the cauldron and become medicine, which can refine the essence pill of yin and yang. The yin and yang furnace is like a pill for people. 5 poisons transform the qi to strengthen the bones and muscles, and the melting liquid of 100 drugs combines the essence. The body is born by parents, and the Tao is formed from heaven and earth. Therefore, fire and water can help the dragon and the tiger." Shi Yunying smoothly revealed this secret recipe, and Jiang Qingkong was taken aback by the words and said, "There is also this secret recipe." Shi Yunying glanced at him and said, "If it weren't for our son's baptism, do you think I would say that this is a secret recipe passed down by our stone clan? I heard that this secret recipe involves the 5 generous golden pills." Upon hearing these words, Jiang Qingkong was immediately moved and hugged Shi Yunying. He gave her a hard kiss and said, "You are truly our mother. In law, you are just smart. But are you okay to say it now?" Jiang Qingkong hesitated slightly again. Shi Yunying waved her hand and said, "Actually, even the nobles of the Stone Kingdom don't know what this oral secret recipe means now, and even if you don't look at it, we've been passing it on for hundreds of years, and it's already not worth any money. At the end of the day, it's better to baptize our children and add some foundation, that is, we don't have the ability to compete with those big families." Speaking, Shi Yunying sighed slightly. Although she came from the Stone Clan, she was only a branch of the Stone Clan. This inevitably reminded her of what she had remembered in her own inheritance, that there was also an ancestral land in the Stone Kingdom, where there were legends of gods sitting. In the past, only a bloodline spread and established a long history of human civilization on this barbaric wilderness. Now think about it, that ancestral land is still glorious. After all, the Stone Kingdom today can firmly establish itself as one of the ancient kingdoms with the strength of the human race thanks to the 3 golden pills. That first ancestral land has 5 generous golden pills, and each child is comparable to a pure-blooded offspring. Within the clan, there are even venerable figures scattered throughout, hiding one side and not leaving the world, preserving another bloodline for the Stone Clan. As for the reason why she said this secret code, that is, Xiaoxi village now has half of the Jiang and half of the Shi surnames. End of this chapter. Chapter 7, Halo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7, Halo. The next day, it was foggy and the weather was not very good, but the hunting team still walked out. The following days are considered normal, with no major disturbances. Jiang Yun is still studying with peace of mind. His memory is good, or in other words, the treasure of the origin halo can record things for him. Practicing martial arts every morning and studying bone script in the afternoon are Jiang Yun's most serious tasks. Practicing martial arts in the morning is because the aura in his heart is nurturing its ability. So Jiang Yun is very excited, it's like watching the original Halo condense his abilities and see what changes it will bring to him. And the afternoon study was because bone script is the foundation of cultivation, and also because every time Jiang Yun learned a little bone script, the Halo of Origin engraved some bone scripts. Due to such changes, Jiang Yun also found that his daily breathing and breathing efficiency had improved slightly, and even his body's recovery speed had increased significantly. The whole person's energy seems to be ignited. At first, Jiang Yun thought it was an illusion, but as the halo of the origin continued to condense and evolve, he could feel that this change was really becoming more and more obvious. And this also made Jiang Yun more and more confident. He dared to believe that as long as the aura of the origin continued like this, he would definitely break through the 100000 blood-moving extreme realm. After all, with his increasing energy and gradually faster recovery every day, he doesn't believe that under such circumstances, he can't reach the extreme state of 100,000 blood transfers. He even dared to think about the extreme realm of moving blood with one arm swaying 108,000 yuan. Of course, don't set your sights too high for now. Pursue the extreme realm of 100,000 first, and wait until you have the opportunity to find Shizhuan and seize the opportunity of Shihao. After all, Shihao was able to achieve such a level thanks to the elixir given by Lu Shen and the precious blood of Zhu Yan. That is the great fortune of Shihao. So Jiang Yun's current goal is not to move to the extreme realm of 100,000 blood. Besides, didn't the original work mention it? Moving blood to the extreme realm doesn't mean you can't go back and repair it. Shihao's family didn't redo it because they had really reached their limit. What did he redo? Jiang Yun, on the other hand, is different. He just wants to reach his limits now, and when he has the opportunity in the future, he will rebuild and cultivate his path, polishing it to an indestructible level. Now his goal is only to carry blood to the extreme realm of 108,000 pounds. Ah! After all, my talent is too weak. Jiang Yun said, but with a smile on his face, at least he still has innate abilities, similar to the supreme talent. What should people without talent do? Half a month has passed in the blink of an eye, and the turtles in the village pond have grown up again, their eyes becoming more agile. Moreover, Jiang Yun also discovered that the turtle's shell had begun to peel off, and the turtle's shell did not grow even longer after peeling off. But through time and time again shedding its skin, it constantly grows its body. It's not surprising that this turtle is growing. But to Jiang Yun's surprise, he found several simple bone inscriptions appearing on the turtle's back. This made Jiang Yun happy in his heart, and he praised Little Black Turtle in a burst of praise. Who are you among the turtle clan today? What I, Turtle Little Black, have? No, there are big taboos. You should be cautious when saying this. Turtle and Little Black have all made progress, and Jiang Yun naturally has also made progress. On the edge of the pond in the village, in the heart of Jiang Yun's field, the primordial halo emits a brilliant light, and energy from heaven and earth converges towards him. In the blink of an eye, energy flowed into his body, strengthening his flesh and constantly strengthening his qi and blood. When Jiang Yun took the initiative to activate the halo, the energy suddenly became even crazier, and he almost couldn't hold on to this crazy energy himself. Fortunately, there was no anomaly in this, and at the same time, the halo also absorbed and stored these excess energy in it, transforming it into a mysterious force that replenished his energy and restored his body. Buzz, buzz. A halo of energy appeared on Jiang Yun's small palm, emitting a faint sound like a rapidly rotating engine. The halo is not small, only the size of a basketball, which is naturally not small in Jiang Yun's hands. However, Jiang Yun felt that if he wanted, this halo could become even larger, but the energy required to become larger would naturally be even greater. And not only can it grow bigger, but it can also naturally become smaller, becoming virtual and real. Of course, these changes naturally require energy regulation to operate. When Jiang Yun succeeds in moving blood or breaks through the cave realm in the future, these energies will become rune divine rays. In addition to becoming bigger and smaller, becoming virtual and real, this halo can also fly quickly with Jiang Yun's intentions. Flight naturally requires energy to maintain, and as for this spontaneous movement, there is no need for Jiang Yun to add any additional energy. Basically, it is maintained at a very low limit. If you want it to be faster, of course, the energy release will also be faster. The halo was just a simple experiment and Jiang Yun put it away. The energy used in this experiment is all stored within the halo and does not involve the current weak power within Jiang Yun's body. In the realm of moving blood, the focus is on the physical body, and it is easy not to use treasure techniques and rune divine rays. Because runes and divine rays are all formed by cultivators using their own qi and blood to continuously nourish the bones and flesh, this is the foundation realm. Naturally, one should not use too much rune divine light, otherwise it will lose qi and blood, causing the physical body to be in debt and unable to step into higher realms. So when it comes to using treasure techniques in the blood-moving realm, it's basically rare, not to mention that Xiaoxi has only used treasure techniques a few times in the blood-moving realm. When the remaining treasures and tools are used, they have already reached the heavenly cave realm. And if someone dares to use magic, who is standing behind them? Lu Shen. The stone village of the first ancestral land. Although the stone village in the first ancestral land has declined, the 5 pills of the stone clan have not been lost. In addition to the elixir passed down by Lu Xinchuan later, Xiaoxi had 6 generous golden pills in his hand, which was also his confidence when he went to the medicine city to refine pills. With the remaining 3 elixirs, Guo can withstand 1,000 years and another. Xiaoxi's family has 6 elixirs in their hands. Do you think they can stand up? So, on the path of cultivation, one cannot be lacking in everything from wealth to dharma. Nowadays, Jiang Yun has no wealth, and the elders of the couple's village, as well as Jiang Yingming, the instructor grandfather who is wandering outside, are not bad either. Dharma, now with the breathing techniques for building foundations, and the assistance of Shizhuan Dan Fang, it can also be considered as a worry-free move to the blood realm. Although Xiaoxi village does not have all the cultural heritage of Shizhuan, it is not inferior to some small tribes. After all, there are 3 caves above the heavenly realm, and the place is also adjacent to the Beast Mountain range, with 100,000 mountains even deeper. At this point, the land is not bad either. Now Jiang Yun is somewhat lacking in wealth. If we really investigate carefully, he really lacks everything except land. Fortunately, today his aura has condensed an ability to summon a gathering aura. As for its ability, you can naturally understand it by its name, which greatly increases the efficiency of Jiang Yun's breathing. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. A great increase in food consumption. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. A great increase in food consumption. This energy-gathering halo not only enhances his breathing efficiency. It also plays a great role in replenishing his physical energy and restoring his physical injuries. Especially as the bone inscriptions continue to be engraved on the original halo, Jiang Yun can feel the energy that washes his body from the halo and also protects his body from dark damage. Although these energies have not truly achieved that effect now, Jiang Yun has not yet finished his bone literature. And his qi and blood have not been transformed into true magic like rune qinqi. So there is still a chance for the ability of this halo to rise. Xiao Yun, what's wrong with you these past few days? Shi Yuning asked, looking at her own child eating a big bowl with a hesitant expression on her face. Although being able to eat is a blessing, Jiang Yun is a bit too good to eat now. Jiang Yun smiled awkwardly upon hearing the words. He was also confused about his appetite, but after checking his body with a halo, he found that his metabolism and digestion speed had increased. There's nothing unusual about the others. So this also led to a significant increase in his appetite. I don't know, but I feel like my strength and energy are getting stronger and stronger, Jiang Yanisheng said. Upon hearing these words, Shi Yunying immediately realized that it was probably because her son had already started to conceive and raise runes, which led to a significant increase in appetite. After all, although these flesh and blood have abundant vitality and energy, they are still a bit insufficient compared to those precious blood and medicines. Since that's the case, then you and I should do more every day, said Shi Yunying, looking at her chubby child with a gentle expression on her face. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yun's eyes lit up and he immediately gave a happy thumbs up to Shi Yunying, saying, I completely agree with this proposal. Eat quickly, take a break after finishing. Watching Jiang Yun give a thumbs up, Shi Yunying was amused and chuckled, then looked at him with both satisfaction and a hint of regret. Fortunately, this 7-year-old child is already so sensible and hardworking, how can she not be proud as a parent? As for the regret, she knew that her child's talent was good, but unfortunately, Xiaoxi village is not Shigua after all, and she cannot receive the blessings that some big tribes only have. Jiang Yun finished his meal quickly. He went to a monastic life and leisurely indulged in food in the village. His cultivation also required relaxation and relaxation. Although he was urgent and faced changes in the wilderness, he constantly reduced his stress and found ways to relax and hone his mind. As he walked to the pool, Jiang Yun saw Jiang Li, Jiang Yu, and Jiang Xiaolong teasing the turtle Xiaohei with a piece of meat. Xiao Yun, why don't Xiaohei eat what we give him? Jiang Li saw Jiang Yun walking and asked curiously. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yun took 4 steps and skillfully took the piece of meat. Then, he reached out and saw the turtle, Xiaohei, who was also very proud, bite it open and eat it one by one. Wow! How did you do it, Xiao Yun? Jiang Xiaolong widened his eyes as he watched Little Black, who had been teasing them for a long time but had no reaction. At this moment, he was eating the small piece of meat in large gulps, and he suddenly said excitedly. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yun was about to say that it was because Xiaohei was close to him that he ate what was in his hand. But when he turned his head, he suddenly had an idea in his mind, and then he smiled foolishly and said. Perhaps it's because I taught it bone script. Perhaps you can share what you have learned about bone script, so that Xiaohei may also eat the food you gave. Jiang Li, Jiang Yu, and Jiang Xiaolong also felt that their words made sense. After all, Jiang Yun had been talking to Xiaohei for so long, so it was only right to get close to him. So Jiang Li and the others excitedly said, then we can also teach Xiaohei bone script, or when the instructor grandfather teaches me, we can also bring it with us. Jiang Yun nodded naturally in agreement. Although Xiaohei's bloodline had not awakened, as long as he nurtured it well, he continued to impart bone texts to help him develop his intelligence and become familiar with them, and embark on the path of cultivation. He thought that even if Xiaohei could not become Xuanwu in the future, he could at least provide an additional guardian spirit beast for Xiaoxi village. After wandering the village, Jiang Yun finished eating and returned home. His lunch break was an important rest for him. As the saying goes, there is not enough lunch break and blood is insufficient. Moreover, the noon sun is not suitable for playing outside, let alone for cultivation. After all, the noon sun is scorching and extremely hot. He is not yet a cultivator in the cave realm, so he cannot engage in such cultivation all day long. After taking a nap, Jiang Yun freshened up and washed his face, then stepped out of his short legs and went to learn bone script from Jiang Yingming. For Jiang Yun's eagerness to learn, Jiang Yingming naturally does not hide it privately, and Jiang Yun really learns very quickly. After teaching commonly used bone inscriptions, the remaining bone inscriptions are basically limited to 1,000 words per day, and can be learned in just 30 days. That means in just 1 month, Jiang Yun can learn all the bone inscriptions. This learning speed really scared Jiang Yingming. However, Jiang Yingming is at least a knowledgeable person, and he knows that such a learning speed is not particularly astonishing in the wilderness. However, this at least indicates that Jiang Yun is also a talented child. It seems that even my old bones are about to move. Jiang Yingming looked at Jiang Yun, who was studying hard, and thought to himself. He was blessed by the village in earlier years and was able to leave the village and wander through the wilderness. Now that the descendants of the village need it, he is naturally willing to pave the way for them. The next day, when Jiang Yun came to study bone inscriptions, it was not Jiang Yingming who taught him, but the village chief's grandfather Jiang Sisui. "Grandpa village chief, where has Grandpa Jiang gone?" Jiang Yun asked curiously as he looked at Jiang Sisui. Jiang Sisui touched Xiao Jiang Yun's head and said, "Grandpa Jiang has gone to collect precious blood for you." Upon hearing this, Jiang Yun widened his eyes. He knew that Grandpa Jiang had been hunting frequently since returning to the village. But it is said that he once suffered a slight secret injury, which, although not fatal or damaging his cultivation, affected his ability to continue his cultivation. So to this day, Jiang Yingming's activity time is getting shorter and shorter because his qi and blood have begun to decline, and there are already some white hair between his temples. What Jiang Yun didn't expect was that Jiang Yingming would use his already declining energy and blood to help him walk out of the village again. Jiang Sishui's expression began to darken when he saw Jiang Yun, and this nearly 100-year-old man naturally knew what Jiang Yun was thinking. Jiang Sisui smiled kindly and said, "Xiao Jiang Yun, don't think so much. You have been wise since childhood. You must understand that in this vast wilderness, each of us has our own responsibilities." Upon hearing this, Jiang Yun looked up at Jiang Sisui. In his past life, he was just a college student who had never entered society. He knew a lot about great principles and knowledge, but he had only just started learning the complex knowledge of life. Jiang Sisui still smiled with a gentle tone and said, "Our responsibility, like us elderly people, is to teach you knowledge and impart all our experiences to you. And if necessary, we will also be the first barrier to Xiaoxi village." Listening to such cruel words, Jiang Yun was naturally able to hear the meaning behind it, which made his face furrow slightly. End of this chapter. Chapter 9, Understanding the World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9, Understanding the World. Ha. You may feel cruel, but Grandpa, I want to tell you that this world will always be cruel, and our responsibility for each generation is to open up a pure land for future generations in this cruel world. Jiang Sisui burst out laughing when he saw Jiang Yun's wrinkled smiling face. This child's expression was just like his father's back then, which made him somewhat relieved. Jiang Yun is not a fool, nor is he ignorant. He originally knew that the great wilderness was cruel. After all, this is a world where great power is concentrated. But he didn't expect that this wilderness would be so cruel. This is the responsibility of each generation. Look at your father and all the uncles going out of this village, fighting fierce beasts and poisonous insects. These are all dangers of life and death, but they have to do it. Because they are the pillars of life and the foundation of the entire Xiaoxi village. If they catch prey, we naturally have something to eat. If they cannot catch prey, we naturally have nothing to eat, and can only sit and eat in the air. And what sets us apart from those large tribes in the wilderness is that they have a large amount of reserves, yet we can only survive cautiously. Jiang Sisui spoke in a gentle tone about the cruel world. He had to do so, just as the world is like this. Jiang Yun is an early-witted child. In such a world, early-witted children will receive care from the village, but he will also be responsible for such care. Jiang Yun's heart sank, heavy and heavy. It was unclear whether he was burdened with a stone or a responsibility, but it was quite heavy. Jiang Sisui stopped speaking at this moment and then said gently, "So Xiao Jiang Yun, you need to work hard to cultivate. We don't have much ability, but we just hope that you can walk out of Xiaoxi village like your instructor grandfather, go see and explore." Jiang Yun nodded fiercely upon hearing the words, and then the teaching of bone script began again. Just the same learning efficiency, but the mindset of the learners has begun to change. Jiang Yun knew that despite what Jiang Sisui said so cruelly, there were actually even more cruel things that he hadn't told him. His mother, Shi Yunying, was clearly a member of the Shi ethnic group, and there were at least half of the Shi surnames in Xiaoxi village. How did they combine to form a new village in this era where surnames were the collective? Jiang Yun knew that it was only the cruelty of external forces that brought the two weak villages together. They abandoned the collective surnames and used marriage as a rope to connect them together. Jiang Yun once thought that the Xiling and Shanling of Xiaoxi village were the sacrificial spirits of the two villages in the past. This has already been covered up by the village elders, and no one knows or is willing to mention it. They no longer have any previous villages or people's accounts. They are just Xiaoxi village now. At night, in Jiang Yun's room, amidst the constant chirping of insects, although there was also some noise, there was also some purity. A pair of eyes opened in the darkness, but today's words had a slight impact on him. That is to say, he has been in this world for many years, and with his familiar ears and eyes, he can also accept such things. After all, it's common for hunting teams to get injured. Practice. A murmur at night, no one knew that someone had seen through this cruel world that night. No one knew that this night there was a child with an adult soul who chose to take on a heavy responsibility. The next morning. Jiang Yun is still a practitioner with a happy smile on his face. With the condensation of this energy-gathering aura, his throughput efficiency can be said to have greatly increased now. In addition, with his increased appetite, he runs around the village every day, playing and exercising back and forth, dissipating the vigorous energy in his body, and gradually condensing his qi and blood into runes. On the bone, it is called bone script, in the flesh and blood, it is called rune, and after refining, it is called shinqi. Although Jiang Yun's bone script has not been completed yet, his vigorous energy in gradually surpassing his peers' qi and blood have already begun to gather runes. The restoration of the original aura and the replenishment of energy also allowed Jiang Yun not to worry about premature condensation of runes and loss of qi and blood. This is an opportunity brought by his unique talent. Hurry up. A few days later, the hunting team at the entrance of Xiaoxi village and Jiang Yingming returned. I saw them returning with a dragon-horned elephant, a black dragon, and a few unicorn rhinoceroses. Jiang Sisui was very happy to see such a rare harvest, but he still found Jiang Yingming first. Jiang Yingming is still very strong, leaning on a pine cane and walking behind the crowd, with a beastly leather bag in his hand. This animal skin bag occasionally stirs up, and now when you look back, each hunting team is carrying a mouthful of animal skin bags. These animal skin bags are made of the toughest animal skin and are basically used to hold some toxins. How is your body? Jiang Sisui walked up to Jiang Yingming and asked with concern. Jiang Yingming laughed heartily and said, "This time when I went out, I didn't make much of a fuss. The black dragon was fighting against a golden-winged bird, and we ambushed and picked up a bargain. If it weren't for that bird flying fast, we would have caught even that bird." Jiang Liehu laughed proudly. Jiang Sisui burst out laughing at the words and said, "I didn't expect such a good thing to happen." Then everyone pulled these fierce beasts into the village, and it was once again a bustling activity. A clan old man has lost his past immortal demeanor, and today they have all turned into butchers, wielding short swords, purple golden axes, and bronze knives on these ferocious beasts one by one. Several hours had passed, and the sun had already begun to tilt westward. After offering sacrifices to the gods, Jiang Yingming counted the blood jars in front of him. More than 50 cans, of course, these are not precious blood. These are just ordinary blood of these ferocious beasts, but even these ordinary blood are important formulas in baptism. Is this enough to include what we left before? Jiang Sisui asked in a voice. Jiang Yingming nodded satisfactorily and said, "Enough, this black dragon has provided us with a lot of precious and spiritual blood. This time, I went out and specifically caught some of the 5 poisons that have become the climate. This time, I have to give the children a good baptism." The other tribal elders burst out laughing happily upon hearing this. Okay. It seems that someone is helping with this baptism. It should be said that our village has gained momentum. Jiang Yingming laughed happily at this and said, since that's the case, we'll prepare for baptism tomorrow. Today. Let's all have a good meal together. Like the atmosphere of the Chinese New Year, it appeared in the village. Jiang Yun ran among the crowd, holding a beast leg the same size as him. Startled, Jiang Qingkong quickly asked Shi Yunying about their son's occasional strange illness. After learning about the situation, Jiang Yun's beast legs in his hand changed from 1 to 2, end of this chapter. Chapter 10, Baptism. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10, Baptism. The next morning, everyone started preparing after practicing. Ah! I hate baptism. I'm not going in. I'm not going in. Xiao Yun, help me. Help me. My dad and his team are going to cook me. Crying and shouting have become the theme of Xiaoxi village today. Jiang Li cried and shouted for help from afar, unaware that this baptism could not be avoided by Jiang Yun. I saw a large cauldron carrying a faint black gold luster out of the ancestral house. These are all made of bronze, of course not as magical as those big cauldrons in Shimura, but they can also be considered old objects in Xiaoxi village. In addition, there is also a purple and golden cauldron, which weighs only tens of thousands of pounds. When it was lifted out and put down, 4 small pits were smashed out on the entire ground. I saw patterns of birds, beasts, fish, insects, mountains, rivers, flowers, and trees on this purple golden cauldron. After Jiang Yingming saw the purple golden cauldron come out, the divine light in his hand appeared and slowly fell towards the cauldron. Dong! A dull voice rang out, and then the entire purple golden cauldron instantly seemed as if it had just been fired, becoming extremely stunning. Bang! The top cover of the purple golden cauldron suddenly moved, emitting a sound of gold and iron. Immediately, a strong and sweet medicinal fragrance emanated from the cauldron. Ha ha ha, hurry up, seal the cauldron first, you can't let those medicinal qi dissipate. Jiang Yingming laughed happily when she saw that the traditional Chinese medicine fragrance of her ancestral vessel was still full. This is the medicinal root that they have passed down from generation to generation. The baptism quickly began, and each child was placed naked in the cauldron. Jiang Yun also entered a large cauldron, and then began to add medicine to each cauldron. Spiders as big as palms, centipedes as long as arms, and a large amount of blood and water began to pour into the cauldron, mixed and boiled. Gudu. In a black cauldron, as the medicine boiled hot, the viscous liquid in the cauldron began to bubble. And at this moment, Jiang Yun, who is located in the cauldron, is enjoying it a bit. The halo of the origin shines faintly in his heart, and the runes engraved on it make it appear very divine, like a precious immortal. Buzz. A light sound echoed in Jiang Yun's heart, and soon the runes engraved on the original halo began to emerge, shining like sparks around the halo. Then a wonderful feeling surged into Jiang Yun's heart, as if he could manipulate these runes to unleash his magical abilities in the halo. He was moved in his mind, and then a halo engraved with a large number of runes appeared around him as if it were virtual or real, falling into the medicine in the cauldron. Gudu. A little spark began to emanate from the halo, immediately enveloping around Jiang Yun. Suddenly, the medicinal power in the liquid began to converge along the halo like qi towards Jiang Yun. This speed is extremely fast, and Jiang Yun didn't experience much pain throughout the entire process. Instead, it felt a bit like soaking in a hot spring. After these large amounts of medicinal powers flooded into his body, Jiang Yun could clearly feel that his flesh and blood were constantly increasing, or rather, his qi and blood were increasing. Qi and blood refer to the blood that nourishes the whole body, promotes the circulation of qi and blood, and this is qi and blood. So the increase in qi and blood refers to the improvement of Jiang Yun's hematopoietic ability, and the blood is gradually becoming viscous. The energy contained in the blood is also increasing, which is the benefit of baptism. Village chief, look at how Zia Jianjian's cauldron has become clear. Shi Yunying and Jiang Qingkong have been paying attention to Jiang Yun, and at this point, they discovered that something was wrong with Jiang Yunding. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yingming walked over to Jiang Yun's cauldron and looked at it. After a glance, he quickly exclaimed with joy, "Hurry up, pour all the precious blood under your body into this cauldron. You can't ruin the baptism." Seeing Jiang Yingming beaming with joy, Shi Yun suddenly realized that this should be a good thing. As a small jar of precious blood was poured in, various medicines were reintroduced. It was not true that there was a supernatural phenomenon. With the addition of these things, the liquid that was about to turn into clear water quickly became thick again. This time, the amount is 3 times that of other children. However, Jiang Yun in the cauldron was unaware of this, and at this moment he relied on his halo to continuously absorb the medicinal power in the cauldron. The scattered spark of the halo was like a small black hole constantly absorbing medicinal power in the cauldron, and then it was infused into his flesh and blood through the magic of the original halo. It's hard to imagine how much benefit Jiang Yun gained from such baptism and absorption. But Jiang Yun himself knew that at this moment, the runes in his flesh and blood were condensing one by one, and some of the earliest runes were also shining, transforming into rune gods. Day and night passed quickly, and the fires under each cauldron had already been extinguished. I saw the children in the village being carried out one by one, wiped their bodies, and then taken back to rest. After tinkering all day and night, not to mention children, even these healthy adults are a bit tired. Collect these liquid medicines and make them into medicinal powder. They are all essence. Jiang Yingming pointed to the thick liquid medicine left by the children after baptism. These can be called dregs or essence. Oh! Little Jiang Yun's cauldron has been absorbed. As Xiao Jiang Yun was finally carried out, Jiang Qingkong smiled in surprise and patted Xiao Jiang Yun's buttocks, saying, "I didn't expect my child to be a little genius." All right, don't mess with him. Let me take him back to rest." Shi Yunying glanced at his own man, then took Xiao Jiang Yun, wiped him, and carried him home to rest. The next morning in the blink of an eye, the hunting team is still on vacation today. After all, they just finished baptizing yesterday, so today they naturally want to see the results of their own child's baptism. "Xiao Yun, let me see if your father's strength has increased again." After finishing morning exercises, Jiang Qingkong approached Jiang Yun and asked. There have been such changes in the baptism of his own son, so naturally he wants to see if there have been any changes in his own child. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yun also became interested. He also wanted to test whether his strength had increased. It is reasonable to say that he absorbed so much medicine yesterday, and it is possible that his strength will increase today. Then Jiang Yun looked at the rock that the clan elders often sat on, which weighed about 6,000 or 7,000 pounds. Seeing Jiang Yun set off towards this rock, Jiang Qingkong nervously said, "My child. You don't have a place to hold on to such a big stone, why don't we exchange it for a smaller one?" Jiang Yun shook his head slightly and said with a smile, "Don't worry. Dad, just keep an eye on it." Look, even my father stopped shouting, obviously he has a lot of confidence. Jiang Qingkong could only follow behind him when he saw this. If Jiang Yun couldn't bear it, he could still take some precautions. Don't underestimate them, although their strength hasn't reached such an astonishing level, they still have 1,000 or 2,000 pounds. Don't you see that the children in Shizuan have thousands of pounds of power after being baptized, and one even has 1,000 pounds of power after being baptized for the first time. So for the heavenly pride on the wilderness, this 1,000,000 blood-moving extreme realm can really be achieved as long as they can endure hardships. Of course, this also requires a certain stage of talent. And these men who have been living in the wilderness for years all have tens of thousands of pounds of strength, otherwise they would not be able to fight against those fierce beasts, and even survive in the vast wilderness where ancient relics are rampant. Is it true that the human race cannot thrive solely on its reproductive ability? What time do you think is suitable for the update? I will change the time. Also, I hope everyone can collect more and support the author. End of this chapter.